right now we
This
live in,
conference will now be recorded.
yoga and other spiritual practices are very important because I feel in the last couple of decades we have been so busy with the rat race or with certain other pursuits that have caused so much stress in our systems that now it is important to look within and see if we can find some sort of balance somewhere, and that is where yoga comes in. And whenever we talk about yoga, we cannot ignore the fact that it is a very old it's a very old subject, and that's why the presentation is titled A Brief History, because any history about yoga cannot be brief, but it is so long that I cannot do justice to it even in 24 hours. It's such a long history. So I have made some efforts to sort of condense the history of yoga to give everyone an idea about this subject, and also why must we study yoga, why must we practice yoga, why is it relevant today. So that is going to be what we're going to be looking at in today's lecture. So moving on, what is yoga? Now the interesting thing is that everyone, most people I come across, about 95%, 98% people even, will say that they have done yoga in some way or the other throughout their lives. And when you ask people, what is yoga, what have you practiced, what is it that you have thought about, about the subject, everyone says many things. There are many different ideas that come forth, and depending on everyone's experience. So the things that I have come across is, some people will say that it's an exercise, maybe it's a meditation. Some people will say maybe it's an activity. Some people say it's a course. I've done a course in yoga. Some people say yoga philosophy. And some people say, well, it's some kind of spirituality. Some people may even say that it's a religion. So to simplify it and try to shed some deeper insight into it, I've divided today's lecture into 3 topics. The first one will be the history of yoga. Then we'll look at why is yoga so important, so the importance of yoga. And finally, we'll look at the relevance of yoga today. Now, sorry. Now, first we'll start with history of yoga. So yoga is very old, as I've mentioned already, but the documentation, the actual work that we find, where we can say that, okay, here is some proof, some record that yoga is existing. We found that about 5,000 years ago, and that's also a rough estimate. Roughly 5,000 years ago, we have found a sculpture, which we think, the person in the sculpture is practicing a yoga asana. And it was found in a temple in South India. And we say that because this temple was dated for about 5,000 years ago, we say that the first documentation ever was 5,000 years ago. However, we know that yoga was being practiced a long time even before 5,000 years, because for the most part, yoga has been an oral tradition. Now, oral tradition, as opposed to a written tradition, is a tradition where it is passed on through a teacher to a student orally. So I would traditionally, how it's done is, I will go to a teacher. The teacher will impart all the knowledge he has or she has to me through oral form. So every day I will go to the teacher. Every day I will get a lecture. I will not note anything down. The teacher will not have any books. There will be no books available about the subject. And yoga, by and large, was being practiced like that even before 5,000 years. But about 5,000 years ago, we collectively, humanity decided that we needed to decorate things, we needed to write things, we needed to draw things. And that is when, inspired by the practice of yoga 5,000 years ago, we started to have art based on yogasanas. And to give you a better understanding of how old yoga is, the first reference to the word yoga is in the Rig Veda. And the Rig Veda, as most of you will know, is one of the oldest texts of Hinduism, and it was written, or it was, let's say, collated around 1500 BC. So that is how old the civilization in this part of the world, in this region, is, and that is how old the philosophy of yoga is. So now, moving on, we will look at some definitions for the word yoga. And the interesting thing is that there are many different definitions. There are many. We have a lot of texts in Hinduism where you can say the Indian culture as well, where the word yoga, there has been an attempt to define what it is. So as I mentioned before, the Rig Veda is where we have the first mention of the word, but it wasn't exactly the word yog. The word that we find in the Rig Veda is the word yuj. And now yuj means to yoke, okay, which means to combine or to unite or to bring together. It's a word which has many different meanings. And what we interpret as yoga scholars, we say that it actually refers to joining yourself to the higher self. Because as many of you may know, yoga is also a means of enlightenment. The practice of yoga, the path of yoga, is also a means to understanding who we are, understanding the larger world and the universe, and therefore attaining some what we call moksha or attaining nirvana. And so we believe the Rig Veda actually meant this, attaching yourself to the higher self, when they mentioned the word yuj. Now, if you look at the slide, the second definition says yoga chitta vritti nirodha, which is yoga is the cessations of the fluctuations of the mind, which basically means the fluctuations of the minds are your thoughts. Okay, so yoga is the process of decreasing the thoughts that are in your mind. So in essence, yoga is a way for you to become more peaceful, to think less, to reduce your anxiety, to reduce your stress. So this is also a definition which is not a modern definition. It comes from a text called the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Many of you may have heard about Patanjali because of Baba Ramdev. You know, his brand is called Patanjali. But Patanjali was actually also a very important saint in yoga history, and in fact in in Hinduism as well, in Hindu history. And he actually, we believe that he was a very enlightened sage. He has written not only about yoga, he's written about medicine, he has written about Ayurveda, he has written about grammar, he has written about many things in addition to yoga. So we say that he was actually a very enlightened person, and through all the study that he had done, he came up with this particular definition about yoga. And what he did was he collected all the information that he had and all of his study that he had done, and he wrote a book. And the book is called the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. And there, in that book, he has defined 196 aphorisms, which are basically definitions about yoga. And I've mentioned it in the slide also, that his Yoga Sutras are actually divided into 4 chapters, and he compiled it around 500 to 400 BC. So it is that old. And Patanjali himself was born in about 200 BC. So you can say, as we say, you know, the ancient sages of our culture and of our country, they were so old. You know, yogis live for many years. Yoga is a way that you can stay young and you can, you know, live for a very long time. So you can see Patanjali was born in 200 BC, and he actually compiled the Yoga Sutras. We have dated it to about 500 to 400 BC. So you can see that yoga actually was being practiced at that time, and we can also see it was being studied, and there were so many results that the practice of yoga were yielding for us as well. Now, the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, it is important to know a little bit about this. I'd like to, give you some insight, because again, Patanjali, the word is so famous now in India because of Baba Ramdev, but I don't find that many people really know who Patanjali was. And we've discussed a little bit about him, but why are his Yoga Sutras so important? And we will also see that, you know, when our ancient sages were writing about yoga, and when they were trying to impart knowledge about yoga, there was a system and there was a process. You know, so sometimes we think that the arts, or we think spirituality, that there is no structure and there is no process. However, we will see that yoga was a highly evolved science, and we can see it through the book, the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Patanjali, he divided the 4 chapters. He divided the sutras into 4 chapters. And these chapters are Samadhi chapter, the Sadhana chapter, Vibhuti and Kevalya chapter. Now, the Samadhi chapter actually is the first chapter, and in that he defined what yoga was, and he defined what consciousness was. So now we see a lot of people being interested in, the science of consciousness and the art of consciousness, and how can I be more mindful and how can I be more conscious. Well, Patanjali has defined it already many centuries ago, and you just have to read this book to find out what is consciousness and what is yoga. Now, in the next chapter, in the sadhana chapter, like we know, sadhana means a sort of practice or a spiritual pursuit. So in the sadhana chapter, he talks about what we must do as yoga practitioners to finally reach moksha or reach enlightenment. So he says, first in the samadhi chapter, he gives you an introduction about yoga. Then he says, okay, if you want to reach the highest level of yoga, if you want some results from yoga, then read the sadhana chapter. And in the sadhana chapter, he defines, okay, these are the things that a practitioner must do in order to reach the highest level of enlightenment. And so then after you learn about these, what are the effects, so after you learn about what the efforts are and how to reach enlightenment, then Patanjali said, okay, there is also something else, which is the Vibhuti chapter, where I will tell you about the effects, the divine effects of yoga practice. So as you start to practice yoga, you will not immediately become an enlightened sage. You will not immediately become a guru. It is a whole process. So before that, you will gain some insight, some powers, and you will become a sort of like an enlightened person. You'll exist at a higher level. Your consciousness will become more clear. So he has defined all of that in the Vibhuti chapter. And finally, in the Kevalya, in the last chapter, he says, okay, now you have achieved the main goal and the main aim of yoga. And here is where you exist with the unity with the enlightened one, unity with the divine. And that is how you can, like sort of achieve the whole purpose of yoga, or the whole methodology of yoga. So he has very succinctly, and he has very systematically defined the process of yoga in his Yoga Sutras. And also, I wanted to talk about Ashtanga Yoga, because that is also something that we hear a lot about these days. People ask me, do you teach Ashtanga Yoga? What is Ashtanga Yoga? And from the word itself, you can understand that it means the eight-limbed, Ashtang. It is the yoga of 8 limbs, which means basically that there are 8 steps to attain the whole purpose of yoga. And I have enumerated these steps also. So Ashtanga Yoga, it's a sequence. So we start with Yama, as you can see in the slide, and it ends in Samadhi. So I just wanted to give you a little bit about what is Yama. Yama is basically Yam. So the ethics that you're supposed to follow as the first stage of yoga practice. So it is not even about asana. Sometimes we think, okay, yoga is about yoga postures, yoga asanas. No. Patanjali has said that the first thing you need to follow are some ethics. And he's defined these as the yama, and these are ahimsa, which is basically non-violence, satya, which means truth, astya, which means non-stealing, that I must not steal another person's things, his thoughts, or anything, his life, anything related to him. Brahmacharya, which means restraint, so I must be in control, and aparigraha, which is non-possessiveness. So a lot of times we see in the modern world also, this is mine, I want this, I achieved this is my achievement. Patanjali is saying that to start on the path of yoga, we must try to let go of the possessiveness aspect of our personalities. Then we come into the second step. So he says, first you do the yams, first you follow ethics, and then you come into the niyam. And these are basically the good habits that you are supposed to inculcate as a person who is interested in yoga. Now, these are shaucha, which is cleanliness, santosha, which is contentment, tapas, which is purity, swadhyaya, which is introspection. I want to know, what am I? What are other things? What is this world? So thinking a little bit beyond what you see, beyond the obvious. And finally, he says, Ishwar Pranidhana. That is the highest level of niyam. That's the most important niyam. And which means basically meditating upon a higher power. This is not necessarily like a religious aspect. It is also any spiritual power that you think is above everybody and above the world. So he has said, Patanjali has defined that first come the yam, then the niyam. Then he said you can go into the asana, which everybody knows. These are postures. After asana, he says you should learn pranayam because you will have enough control over your body that you can do breath control. Pranayam is basically breath control. He says once you have gained mastery on your body and your breath, then you can start with pratyahara, which means that you start to focus on within. So you withdraw your awareness from the outside world and you start thinking about what is inside. After you do this, then he says you can start the dharana aspect, which is basically concentration. Then he says, if you're able to concentrate on something, then you will be able to meditate, and that is dhyana. And finally, if you're able to meditate for a long period of time without interruption, then you will finally achieve samadhi, which we also equate to moksha or nirvana, depending on what term you've seen. So this, in essence, is the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and I encourage you to actually read this book. This book is something which is actually very relevant to even the modern world and the kind of issues that we see today and the kind of issues that we come across in the modern world. So now let's move on. So that was Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So there are some more definitions about yoga as well. And many of you may have read or you definitely know about the Bhagavad Gita. So we have a definition about yoga from the Bhagavad Gita as well. And that is yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga is skill in action. This is from chapter 2, verse 50 of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So now, if you know about the Bhagavad Gita, you know that it is a very old text. It is highly revered by many people. You may know that it has 700 shlokas. So it is a comprehensive work. It is a vast book. And the reason that it is so important and relevant for yogis is because of the nature of the story. Now you may all know that the story, the premise of the Bhagavad Gita. So basically, you have Arjuna, who was one of the greatest warriors in our history, and you have Lord Krishna, and they are going into battle. And the battle is basically the Mahabharata. And when Arjun, he goes to battle and he sees that his own kinsmen and his own relatives, that he has to fight his own people, he's in a dilemma. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't want to kill his own people, and it's a huge question. It's a question about dharma for him. How can I kill my own people? Invite so much bad karma on myself. How can I do this action? It is a sin to kill your own people. And he, of course, tells Krishna this. He says to Lord Krishna that I cannot do this. I would rather die than to kill my own people. And then Krishna tells him why he must fight. And he gives him specific reasons, specific examples, and he uses very interesting, very beautiful language to convince Arjun why he must fight, why it is his duty, his dharma to fight. And that particular conversation is the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, and within that conversation between Arjuna and Krishna, we see that there are so many important nuggets, about the purpose of human existence, why we exist, what is the soul, the nature of the soul. Krishna tells Arjuna about the relationship that we have with a higher power. All of that is covered in the Bhagavad Gita, and that is why it is a very important text for yoga students and yoga teachers to study. And what is more interesting is that the Bhagavad Gita was written so long ago in the 2nd century BC, but it is so relevant today. Even today, we have people who study the Bhagavad Gita. We have people who look at it for enlightenment, for some kind of understanding, for some knowledge. And what I particularly appreciate about the Gita is that it lists about four of the main paths of yoga. So within the Bhagavad Gita, we see Gyan Yoga, which is the yoga of knowledge. We see Karma Yoga, which is the yoga of action. We see Raj Yoga, which is the yoga of meditation. And we see also examples of Bhakti Yoga, which is the yoga of devotion. Now, the Bhagavad Gita has about 18 chapters. I told you that there are 700 shlokas. All these shlokas are divided into 18 chapters, and each chapter is about a different kind of yoga. Okay, so each chapter talks about our relationship with the divine. So, as an example, chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita is the yoga of knowledge. Chapter 3 is the yoga of action. Chapter 6 is the yoga of self-control, and chapter 12 is the yoga of devotion. Of course, these are the names in English. These are the English translations of the names, but you can actually just pull up, a copy of the Bhagavad Gita, and you will see that, it has like the Sanskrit equivalent also. Now, moving on. Now, the importance of yoga. Okay, so the most important thing, the most important reason for the pursuit of yoga right now is that it is an important component in holistic health. Now, what do we mean by holistic health? So nowadays, you'll see that the problems, the diseases that human beings have are not external. So many decades ago, let's say even grandparents or parents, you will see that most of the illnesses that they had an outward manifestation. So we were ill, we had a temperature, or we had broken a bone, or maybe someone had an upset stomach. There was an outward manifestation of ailments. However, in the last few decades, the problem has become that the kind of diseases we have are all internal. Things like depression, anxiety, stress, all of these are very, very significant diseases. And these diseases are very dangerous because we cannot see them. So if someone is depressed, I cannot know by looking at the person if he is depressed. So yoga has become more important in recent years because it will give you a balance between your mind, the health of your mind, and the health of your body, which is what is holistic health. So a healthy body and a healthy mind, we've always said that a healthy mind leads to a healthy body. That is more true in yoga than in anywhere else, because in yoga, we look at correcting problems from the inside rather than just treating the symptoms. So yoga, by its very nature, has the ability and the capacity to provide you relief on an emotional and a physical level. And yoga is pretty much the only therapy which has that capacity. And the reason for that is because of the mind control aspect in yoga. So in your healing, in your capacity to heal from any kind of ailment, your mind plays a very important role. Now, your mind can literally reverse disease. And we have research to show this, that if you are thinking positive, if you believe that you are healthy, if you believe that you will never fall ill, and if you believe that you will be able to recover quickly, that you will. And if you are constantly unhappy, if you believe that there is something wrong with you, if you believe that no treatment is going to work for you and nothing is going to help you, then nothing will help you. So the mind is a very critical aspect of healing, and yoga is one methodology through which we can control the mind. And we have actually seen this thing in Western medicine also. So many of you may have heard about the placebo effect, which is basically that, I give a real medicine and I give a fake medicine to two different patients. I tell both of them it is the real medicine. And the patient who believes that this is the real medicine, he will show a response to the medicine, even if he has taken the fake medicine. So that fake medicine is the placebo. This is called the placebo effect. And so we've seen that happens even in Western medicine. In the research that's been done in the field of Western medicine, we have seen that just your mind can really help you in healing. And if you are interested in alternative healing therapies, you'll see that the emotional aspect is so important in like faith healing, in any kind of alternative therapy, in complementary medicine as well. And we have research on this where we've seen that even cancer has been reversed. Other diseases which Western medicine has deemed to be incurable, they have been managed well through the practice of yoga and other therapies similar to yoga. And if you are interested in knowing a little bit more about this, you can read about hypnotherapy in the books by Dr. Brian Weiss. He has written very comprehensively about past life regression and using your emotions to cure disease. There's also a documentary, I believe it's on Netflix. It's called Heal, and that documentary also talks about the importance of the mind, in solving your physical ailments. And also, now in India, we have actually given a lot of credit to such therapies. Yoga has for centuries been an Indian alternative, medicine. It's taken on, the status of almost like a medicine or a therapy. And very few know about what Ayush means. So you know that now, with the coronavirus going around, we have a department of Ayush, the Ministry of Ayush. But do we know what Ayush is? Actually, Ayush is the department which deals with all of the alternative therapies. So if you look at the word, A is Ayurveda, Y is yoga, U is Unani medicine, then you have S, which is Siddha, the Siddha form of treatment, and then you have H, which is homeopathy. So you see, all of these are alternative therapies, alternative methods of healing, which the Indian government has given credibility to and has given credit to, along with your Western medicine. And one of the most important things that we see of all of these therapies, not just yoga, but everything else under Ayush, is also that they impact your nervous system. And whenever something has the capacity to impact your nervous system, that is when you know that this is a very, very strong and powerful thing. And now we look at the nervous system a little bit. So many of you may have studied biology in school. So the human nervous system is basically divided into two parts. You have the central nervous system and you have the peripheral nervous system. And the reason I'm going into this is because I would like to show you how yoga is working on the level of your brain and of your nervous system. So the central nervous system is basically your brain and your spinal cord. And then we have the peripheral nervous system, the PNS, which is everything else. So you have your nerves, you have your motor neurons, you have your enteric nervous system, and then I have bolded this also, you have the autonomic nervous system, which I'm going to call ANS going forward. So like human nervous system in the slide, it's a CNS, PNS. Now PNS has your ANS also. And now quickly, I wanted to go through what is your ANS. Now, the autonomic nervous system is further divided into two aspects. Okay. Now, again, those of you who have studied biology, or even if you have not studied biology, it's fine. You may know that there are two automatic responses that we have. Okay, one is the fight or flight reaction, and one is the rest and relax reactions. Now, these are spontaneous reactions of our nervous system. And they're so important that we have said that the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system are responsible for each of these responses. Now, the fight or flight reaction of the human nervous system is, both of these are very old. Okay, so since man, like the caveman times, when the main threat for a man was that he might have been chased by wild animals. There was always a fear of being eaten by a lion or a bear in the jungle, and we had to forage for food. At that time, we see that our fight and flight reaction was very strong. So whenever there was a danger, at the time, I would have to fight, or I would have to to flee. Like I would have to run away to save my life. So this was a reaction back then, and it exists in our nervous system even now. So even today, if I am under stress, if there is some kind of danger to me physically or emotionally, then the sympathetic nervous system, or your fight or flight response, is very active. It is stimulated. And conversely, the opposite of that. So the parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for your rest and relax. So in the ancient times, in the caveman times, when we were in the jungles, living in the jungles, when I was calm, there was no danger around me, I had eaten well, everything was conducive to a very peaceful existence, then my parasympathetic nervous system was active, so I could relax completely. Okay. Today, that rest and relax system also exists. So whenever we are feeling happy, whenever we are on vacation, all of that, whenever you are not stimulated at all, when you are at a state of rest, your parasympathetic nervous system is active. And the interesting thing is that these two nervous systems have been there our since early man. So these systems have always been there to help us in negotiating the world, the ups and downs of the world. But now the problem has happened that for human beings today, we are hardly ever relaxed. So as a result, my sympathetic nervous system is always stimulated, so I am always in fight or flight mode, which means I'm always stressed. Okay, so that part of my nervous system is always stimulated, whereas my parasympathetic nervous system, my sense of relaxation, is very little stimulated. It is hardly stimulated. So what do we see then? We see that there is an imbalance. So for 95% of the day, I may be my fight or flight reaction might be very high. I may be undergoing that, and for the rest of the time, which is only 5%, my parasympathetic nervous system is active. So I'm, in essence, as human beings today, we are not relaxing at all. And that is what is leading to stress, long-term anxiety, long-term depression. And how yoga helps is that it brings about a balance between these two reactions. And how it does that is because of the very simple act of breathing itself. Okay, so your breath is directly related to your nervous system. So whenever you're tense, you will notice that you start to breathe faster and your breaths are shallow. Whenever you're relaxed, when you're sleeping, for instance, your breathing is very long and it is very relaxed. And yoga works on your breath itself. So by controlling your breath, by slowing down your breath, it tries to bring about a relaxation in your body so that you can combat the stresses that happen, and the strains that happen in your body. So that is how yoga has become so important in modern therapy, in modern medicine as well. Now, okay, so now if you look and we come again to modern medicine and modern therapy. If you think about how human beings have evolved over time. Now, historically, our biggest threats have been natural calamities. Okay, historically, that has been the dangers to mankind. So mankind has perished in floods, in droughts, famine, and pandemics. So unlike the coronavirus, in the past, pandemics have like essentially wiped away entire populations. So we've seen cholera, we've seen the bubonic plague, we've seen the Black Death, etc. In these pandemics, we were powerless against them because we had no, Western medicine was not advanced, medicine was not advanced, and that was the biggest threat to mankind. However, today we don't have these. We have attained such a level of evolution that floods, droughts, famine, by and large, are not a threat to mankind as a species. So what is our biggest threat today? And the biggest threat today is that our own emotions, our own actions are the biggest threat today. Okay, so if you see, what are the problems today? We see that human beings don't care about each other. We see a lack of sympathy, we see a lack of empathy. If you see in the last few weeks, there have been so many cases of celebrities taking their own lives, famous people, rich people taking their own lives, and so many common people, also regular people, taking their own lives. Why is this happening? There's no outside threat. It is internal threats that are causing us to go through such extreme lengths. There's so much criticism all around. We feel as human beings that we are not accepted by our fellow human beings, maybe by our families, by society. All of this is causing so much problems that has become the biggest threat to human beings today. And if human beings have to be resilient again, we will have to understand that although you may have a strong mind, you must have a strong you may have a strong body, you must have a strong mind also. We need to see that these are very interconnected, you know. And also with the process, with the methodology of yoga, not only do we find a solution for mental health issues, but the practice of yoga also has the ability to make you feel very positive. It has a positive impact on your mind, on your lifestyle, and consequently on everyone around you. So through the practice of yoga, we can actually solve so many problems that exist even in society today. Okay, so why yoga? As I said, Ayush, the Ministry of Ayush has Ayurveda, Yoga, Siddha, homeopathy. So why yoga? And the reason for that is that um, the Ashtanga yoga method, it focuses on your mental, emotional, and spiritual development before your physical development. Okay, so now today, these days, there's so many instances of heart attacks. Okay, like young people, people who seem happy, people who seem, they have good weight, their weight is not too much, they don't have any other symptoms, any other problems, and they're having heart attacks. We see seemingly healthy people having health issues. Why is that happening? And that is happening because there is a problem in the minds of people. There is a problem in how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling. So in the Ashtanga yoga method, we say that, okay, let's focus on the mind before we start talking about the physical aspect. So if you remember the Ashtanga yoga method, I said yam and niyams come even before asana and pranayam. So we are saying, okay, you need to live by some ethics, some code of conduct, some good habits, and then you can start to talk about your physical aspect. So that is why we say that that yoga is the solution. And also this also brings up an important point that many times we see someone who's very thin, and we think, okay, you are not fat and therefore you must be healthy. But according to yoga, thin is not being healthy. According to yoga, a healthy human being, like a healthy mind, is a healthy human being. So that is another change that we need to bring about in our perception about health. We have to start looking at health from the inside rather than just the physical aspect of a person. And also in yoga, we also emphasize that it is important to think about your community, the people around you, because if you become healthy, then your family becomes healthy. If your family becomes healthy, then your community becomes healthy. If your community is healthy, then the whole world, your country becomes healthy, and so on, to the whole world. And so the message is quite clear because I've been studying yoga and yoga texts for so long. I see it very clearly that the ancient sages, our ancient sages, knew that real health actually begins from the inside. If you are rotten on the inside, you will not be healthy on the outside. Eventually, we will see that you will get some sort of disease. Things will collapse for you. Now we come to food and yoga, which is always something I think that everyone is quite interested in. What kind of food should we eat, and what kind of food does yoga yoga prescribe or recommend? Um, so now I'd like to introduce you to another text, which is the Hat Yoga Pradipika, Hat Yoga Pradipika, which is basically light on yoga. It was written by Swami Swatmarama in the 15th century, approximately in the 15th century BC. Now, this particular text is very important because it details the whole lifestyle of a yoga practitioner, and it goes into a lot of detail about food, what kind of food to eat, how to eat, and also when you should eat. So all of that is actually defined in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, and a few of the the details is I've given you here on the slide. So the concept of mita har is very important. Meet ahar. So he's defined that as agreeable and sweet food. So food that you feel good eating. You're supposed to leave 1/4 of your stomach empty, and your food should always be eaten as a offering to Shiva. Now, in yoga philosophy, Shiva is considered the Adi Yogi, the first yogi. So everything we do, whether you perform an asana or if we eat something, it is always an offering to Shiva first before we take it. So that's why why if you see the first point I've said, it is as an offering to Shiva. In the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, it is said that you don't eat for yourself, you eat for a higher power. So it is a spiritual act. It is not only a physical act. Now, the food that you eat should be pleasant tasting food. It should be in agreement with your constitution. So constitution is an Ayurvedic concept, which is basically kapha, pitta, vata. You have 3 different kind of constitutions that every human being has. And you must eat, your diet must be according to that constitution and your metabolism. So if you have low metabolism, you will eat different foods than those who have high metabolism. Now, your stomach should never be overloaded. And you can ensure that by always eating to half of the capacity of your stomach. Also, I've also mentioned this, the last point already, food should not be taken for sense gratification. We should think of food as medicine. And we have seen that in Western, science as well. Let food be thy medicine. I think Hippocrates had said that, that medicine, your food can heal you. The healing nature of food is something that, in the 15th century, Swatmaram had already said this to us. And also he said, okay, you should eat according to, you should offer it to Shiva before you offer it to yourself. Now, the gunas are nothing but the constitution. I had mentioned the vata, pitta, and kapha. So here, now the Gita has also spoken about the 3 gunas. And again, the Gita, I keep going back to the Gita, referencing it because there's so much. It's a treasure trove of knowledge, especially for spiritual life and for yoga. So the Gita has also specified that there are 3 types of food, and food can also be classified according to these characteristics, or you could say these gunas, or these descriptions. So now food, okay, it has classified food into 3 different categories. The first one is rajas, and the definition is right there. Foods that are too bitter, too sour, salty, hot, pungent, dry, and burning are liked by those who are very rajasic in nature. Okay, so these foods are rajasic in nature, and they cause you distress, misery, and disease. And I've also mentioned, for those of you who might want to later on look at this, this is from chapter 17, verse 9 of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, in the Gita, then they talk about the tamasic food. Now, food that is prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten, food that is tasteless, food that is decomposed and putrid, and food that is consisting of remnants and untouchable things is dear to those who are tamasic in nature. Okay, and these foods will make you low on energy. These foods will make you rot from the inside. And this is from chapter 17, verse 10 of the Gita. Now, finally, the kind of food we should eat, and that is defined as sattvic food. Now, the sattvic foods are basically, they help in increasing your longevity, so duration of your life. They purify you, they give you strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. These foods are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. And this is 17.8 in the Bhagavad Gita. And if you notice, Swatma Rama had mentioned Mitahara, which is basically what in the Bhagavad Gita is the sattvic food. So there is a lot of correlation in our ancient yogic texts also. The kind of foods which are recommended There is a consensus amongst different philosophers, and we can very clearly see that in the Bhagavad Gita and Hatha Yoga Pradipika. And also, because we are talking about the Gita, the Gita holds Krishna, Lord Krishna, as the supreme being. We offer the food to him, to Krishna first, and then before we imbibe it for ourselves. So that is food according to the three gunas. Now, okay. So yoga is the secret to happiness. Now, people, many of you may have heard, like, someone says, okay, I'm unhappy, I'm displeased by something, I don't feel, very energetic. And people say, okay, yoga, try yoga. And why? Why do people say that it's yoga? And now the reason for that is that yoga, if you see what's happening today, you see that, okay, we're all suffering. We all know what suffering is. Today, suffering is not new to anyone. Okay, all suffering is due to stress. Now, stress is because of your fast thoughts. So I'm constantly thinking about something, about a new car, about a promotion, about a better house, about life partners, about families. We're constantly thinking about something, and that is causing us stress. All those thoughts are causing us stress. Now, through yoga, we can slow down your thoughts so we can actually eliminate your stress. And meditation, which is an integral part of yoga, is your antidote to stress. And it exists in the practice of yoga, and that is why we say that yoga has the secret of happiness. Your secret of happiness will be found in meditation. And this is in the fifth, if you remember again, like the Ashtanga yoga, I told you about the 8 limbs of yoga. And Pratyahara is the 5th limb. So that is where you withdraw your awareness from the outside world and you go inside. And when you start to monitor your internal state of mind, how you feel on the inside, then you can actually start your dharana, which is concentration, dhyan, which is meditation, and finally you can reach samadhi, which is emancipation. So that is why yoga actually has the secret of happiness. At this point, I'd also like to tell you guys, if you have any questions, I will be taking questions at the end of the session, because yoga is something that everybody has lots of curiosity about. So I have factored in a little bit of time for questions as well. Now, meditation. So since meditation is the secret to happiness, I thought that I would also give a few pointers about meditation, how to meditate as well. So now meditation is a must for you. You must do meditation daily. Okay. Now, the reason why meditation works is again something that we have observed. If you look at the brain waves of somebody who is stressed, the brain waves are very different from somebody who is meditating or somebody who is at rest. Okay, and our brain has many different kinds of brain waves, and they operate at different frequencies, like any other waves. For instance, if you're doing something repetitive and restful, and where your mind, there's very little required from your mind, the kind of waves that exist in your brain are theta waves. Okay, and this can be it has been observed, it has been studied. Now, there are another type of waves called beta waves, which occur in your mind when you are doing some problem solving, when you are planning something. So anything which, and we consider that as a stress. So anything which is a little stressful for you emits the beta wave. So immediately your brain starts to reflect your thoughts. The brain waves start to reflect your thoughts, and that is measurable. Also, we can measure dopamine, the different hormones that are released in your body when you're happy and when you're sad. So dopamine is a positive hormone, and it is released, when your body and your mind are at rest and when you're happy. Similarly, you might have heard of cortisol, which is emitted when you are stressed. So all of these hormones, it's easy to measure them. And because we've measured these and we've measured, meditation and the effect of meditation, we know that these are the hormones and these are the waves which actually help a human being, and which is why you must meditate every day. Now, easy ways to meditate. Because I'm frequently asked about, how can I meditate? I have never gone to a meditation class, and meditation must probably be very difficult. So people ask, what are some easy ways? So these are a few things that really work, and these are very cost effective, and they are also time effective, because I feel that many of us don't have time. Now, the first thing is deep breathing, okay, which just means you inhale and you exhale, long inhalations and long exhalations. Just 10 to 15 minutes before bed, before sleeping, if you do this, it has been shown to improve the quality of your sleep. If the quality of your sleep improves, then you're more rested. Your brain waves actually have a chance to rest. Your brain mind have a chance to rest, and you perform better and you become happier. So deep breathing is great. 10 to 15 minutes before bed. Those of you who know Anulom Vilom Pranayam, which is also known as alternate nostril breathing, that's also an amazing, easy way of meditating. Now, because we live in a world now where there's so many apps, there are of course meditation apps as well. So you have Headspace, which is I think they're based out of the US, which is has shown a lot of effect. It's been very effective for a lot of people. Headspace is one. Then you have Eka, the meditation app, which is actually a very homegrown. It's an Indian app which you can use, which is also very effective. And then you have the Black Lotus app, which is also very good. And another thing I recommend to everybody is to listen to positive vibrations daily. So these vibrations, music which actually has such vibrations is also very effective. It actually changes the way your brain waves are. It changes the way your mind thinks. And if you want to note down, diurnal beats is something that you can search for on YouTube or in any other app that you use. You'll have like entire hour-long sequences which you can listen to, and it actually helps you feel better about yourself. It changes the conditioning of your brain. It rewires your brain in a way. You should also listen to positive affirmations on a daily basis. Also, bhajans and religious discourses. There has been a lot of study done about this as well, and these have also, shown to give a lot of solace and a lot of relief to people. Also, I find that if you read uplifting literature, such as religious literature, self-help, spiritual literature, all of that also really helps in keeping you positive and keeping you upbeat. Now, the power of reflection. Now, your reflection, what is reflection? Basically, reflection means to look within, and we always say that happiness exists within, peace is inside of you. So how are we going to find that if we don't look within and if we don't reflect? And reflection is one of the main criterias and aspects of the practice of yoga, because once you gain some sort of mastery on your pranayam, on your asan practice, then in yoga, we start to say that you have to think about swadhyay, you have to think about dharana, dhyana, then you'll get to samadhi. So reflection is very important. It is important for me to every day sit and contemplate about what has happened, why am I feeling a particular way. It's important to have these conversations with ourselves daily, in order to stay sort of peaceful and to stay in control, to keep your mind in control. And if we do this on a daily basis, if you reflect on a daily basis, you become more mindful and more conscious as a human being, and that actually helps in changing your life and changing the way you think. Now, I have actually experimented with a lot of different forms of reflection. So the easiest way I have found over these years is to actually write. Writing, and many philosophers and many learned and knowledgeable people in around the world have always spoken about the power of writing, and especially the power of writing our thoughts. And so the three things that have really worked and which I recommend to everybody is the 5-minute journal. That's the first thing, which means that only for 5 minutes every day, if you just write something positive, 5 minutes only, nothing special, you don't need any special stationery, nothing. For 5 minutes, sit down and write in the beginning of the day or maybe at the end of the day, what are the good things in my life? Then there's something called gratitude journaling, where you just basically list all the things you're grateful for in your life. Especially on those days when you feel that nothing is going your way. You know, if you spend some time, again, 5 minutes just writing those things that you're happy about, it changes the way again helps to rewire your brain. Then you have your morning pages. So this is actually a proper technique, which is mentioned in a book called The Artist's Way. And basically, what this recommends is that every day you wake up and the first thing you do is to write 3 pages of whatever comes to mind. And what this helps to do is it helps to eliminate any thought that is in your mind, any blockages, thought blockages that are in your mind. Once you write about them, they disappear from your mind. So these are the 3 easiest ways that anyone can implement in order to be able to reflect and to be able to meditate, and as a consequence, to become more peaceful as human beings. Now, so another thing which has become very interesting to a lot of people is yoga nidra. Now, nidra means sleep. Okay, so yogic sleep, we can actually define this as yogic sleep. And basically what it is that it is a guided meditation. So you can actually find recordings of this. All you need to do is lie down in shavasana, and you can just listen to a guided meditation, and your teacher's voice will be guiding you through the whole process of meditation. You may be required to kind of do some visualization. The teacher may ask you to do some affirmations, like positive affirmations. She might ask you to do some breath control, so some pranayam, and it may also have like stimulation and relaxation techniques. So combination of all of this, and under a guidance, so under the guidance of of an experienced teacher, is known as yoga nidra. And it is a boon for busy professionals and for stressed individuals, because 20 minutes of yoga nidra is equal to 4 hours of deep sleep. So that is the power of this technique. And literally translated, it means yogic sleep. So we actually, if you read some of these ancient books, they never say that, so and so Lord, like Lord Vishnu, for instance, he was never sleeping. He was always in yoga nidra. So these sages, they were sleeping for 20 minutes, yoga nidra for 20 minutes, and they could stay awake for 4 hours. So they had to sleep for they had to do yoga nidra for 40 minutes, and they had their 8 hours of rest. And according to yoga philosophy, it is possible to do that even now, that this technique is helping people even today. So that is about yoga nidra. Okay, now I also wanted to talk a little bit about happiness, because happiness is elusive. It is one of the most studied concepts, of any spiritual philosophy, of any religious philosophy. It is what everybody wants. There is nobody who says, I don't want happiness. All of us want to be happy. But what is happiness? As you heard in the beginning of the lecture, I'm actually pursuing my master's in yoga therapy. My university, the Swami Vivekananda University, is very interested in treating people through their mind. So we believe in mind control first, and then in the body, fixing the ailments of the body. So we have done extensive research about happiness. What gives different people happiness? What will make you happy? What is happiness? We've done a lot of research on this, and what we found, at the end of the day, after a lot of research, a lot of study, is that there is no one thing. Even for one human being, the cause of happiness keeps changing. As when you're young, you want good marks. When you have good marks, then you want a good college. When you have good college, you want good placement. So happiness is always elusive. As soon as you think that you have a good job, and happiness is there with you, you find that it's not there. There's something else you want. So happiness is always a quest. It's always like we're running to happiness, and it's running away from us. and it's always elusive. Yet everyone wants it. It's the one of the most studied things, one of the most talked about things. So we wanted to find out what is the nature of happiness. We wanted to study that, and we came up with this analogy that happiness is not in the gulab jamun. So it's a small story basically, that let's say you are somebody who really likes gulab jamuns, and gulab jamun can be anything that you desire, that you really like. You know, the first gulab jamun that you have will make you very happy. You will feel that you are blissful, in a state of bliss. You will feel that you are in heaven. Perhaps that will happen for the second gulab jamun, third gulab jamun, fourth maybe even 10 gulab jamuns. By the 50th gulab jamun, you will be like, I don't want this anymore. This is not giving me happiness. I may even hate it. I may even hate this gulab jamun, which I loved so much just a few minutes ago. You know, so if external things were going to give you happiness, if a gulab jamun, if a new car, if a bigger house was going to give you happiness, then that object should give you happiness all the time. If you have two of those objects, you should be doubly happy. If you have three of those objects, you're triple happy. If you have 50 gulab jamuns, you should be 50 times happy. But actually it was an inverse relationship. The more gulab jamuns I had, the less happy I felt, the more I hated the gulab jamun. So that is the nature of happiness. That happiness is again not in the outside. It is not in the outside object. Happiness is the perception which exists within you. Okay, so that was a little note on happiness. Now, because this is, I wanted to cover as much about yoga, as I could in such a limited period of time. I also wanted to talk about a little about asans and asan practice. This is actually one of the most important components of a yoga practice. It's, basically, if you control your body, if you are disciplined with your body, it becomes easier to discipline your mind. So it is important to every day practice yoga. Now, whenever so there's a belief about psychosomatic emotions, okay, and these are emotions which are deep-seated emotions. So we believe that your emotions and your memories are actually, they reside inside your body, in your muscles. So for instance, your aches and pains, many of us have chronic aches and pains, and sometimes these are idiopathic, like we don't know what is the cause. There has never been an injury, and all of a sudden one day I find that I have lower back pain, or I have shoulder pain or neck pain. So we believe that these are a reflection of what is going on in your mind. So lower back pain may be an indication that you are dissatisfied on your professional or personal front. You may be feeling powerless about life. You may be feeling like overwhelmed with life. Similar with neck pain, your insecurities, your being overwhelmed with life might cause neck pain, might manifest as neck pain. And if you have shoulder pain, it may mean that you have a fear of the future. Now, if every day I work on asanas a little bit, what happens is that my body stretches, my shoulders stretch, my muscles become more supple. And in that way, all the stress that is housed in my body is gradually eliminated from my body. And that is why we say that asana practice is important not only on a physical, for the physical health, but also for your mental health. So you cannot ignore asanas. Now like, because it's the corona time and you may not be able to go to yoga, and maybe there are no yoga classes around you. It's the great thing about today and about technology is that you have everything available at your fingertips. So YouTube is a great place where you can find full-length yoga videos. You can practice with YouTube videos daily. There are so many yoga apps now on your phone, very good ones as well. And of course, you have online yoga classes. Now with the coronavirus, everybody is doing online everything. So even yoga classes are happening online, and I encourage you that you should actually spend some time on looking at some online classes that could help you. Now, what are the actions that we can take as individuals to cultivate, to cultivate a strong body, to cultivate a strong mind. So a few of them are these, like the yams and the niyams. And of course, your asana practice, you should have discipline in your mind. You should have discipline in your body as well. There has to be a balance in life. Now, one more thing that is very important is the role, that other people have in your health. Now, nobody is an individual, nobody is alone. We are all connected, maybe to people in our workplace, definitely to our families, people in our communities, our neighborhood. We are all connected, you know. And today, if you want to be happy and if you want to live a well-balanced life, it is important for you to have connections with everybody around you. It is important for us to work together in the project called life. Okay, so the analogy would be, like a successful company. And because I worked for Infosys, I'll talk about Infosys. Now, Infosys as a company is not made of only software engineers, right? I was a software engineer at Infosys, but I saw that we had, a great marketing department. We had a great human resources department. We had a good research department. The R&D. We had so many different departments made Infosys the great company, the renowned company that it is, right? So similarly, if we want to be happy as individuals, we cannot exist in in isolation. You are a part of a family, and the family's health contributes to your health. Your health contributes to a family's health. In the same way, we are all a part of some kind of institution, whether it's an educational institution or a corporate institution. The need of the hour is that we stop being isolated and living in our little bubbles. There has to be an effort by all of us to understand and to work together as teams, not only as individuals, but to think about the larger good. And this sense of community and this sense of connection has an incredible impact on your mental health. And as you can see in the slide, holistic health depends on your mental health. So if you have healthy individuals, you can have healthy communities, you can have healthy societies, and as a consequence of that, a healthy country. So today we need less experts and more collaborators. So I cannot exist alone. I need to be existing in collaboration with many different people, and that is what is going to help me in being individually happy as an individual as well. Now, a note on the versatility of yoga. Now, I told you about all the books that we study and the fact that yoga was being practiced even before 5,000 years. And so, you see that yoga is something that was relevant back then, historically, ancient times, and it is still relevant today. And why is it so? And the reason for that is that yoga has been versatile. Anything which is related to human beings, okay, which is of use to human beings, will never become obsolete. And yoga was as relevant, like 2 decades ago. In fact, if you look at it as an example, many of you may have grandparents who swear by yoga. Many of you may have parents who also, are big fans of yoga. You yourself may practice yoga, and your children may also be practicing yoga. So even within your lifetime, you see different generations practicing yoga. So we don't need any more proof that this is working across generations, across the ages. And so if you look at, yoga has evolved, of course, in order for yoga to be relevant, it has had to evolve. And you can see these are the different kind of yoga which is available today for you to practice. You have Bhakti yoga, which is the yoga of devotion, Raj yoga, Tantra yoga, which is based on tantric philosophies. You have Hatha yoga, which is the yoga of movement. Ashtanga yoga we went through. Power yoga is a more dynamic form of yoga. Yin yoga is more about like a relaxed kind of yoga. Iyengar yoga is something that is actually very homegrown. BKS Iyengar is the founder of Iyengar yoga. It deals with getting your body in the right alignment and helping to cure a lot of illnesses through that. And especially now because of the COVID virus, the Iyengar Yoga Institute has come out with a lot of yoga sequences that can help you in building immunity. So it is very relevant even right now. And then you have restorative yoga, which is a more slow and easygoing kind of yoga. So you have, these are just a few. This is a subset. There are hundreds of different types of yoga, hundreds of different types of teachers who are teaching a different type of yoga. So it has always been relevant and it will always be relevant. Now, also, I wanted to talk about the things that you should do every day. The three things that I recommend to everybody is have an asana practice daily, meditate every day, and do some kind of contemplation or writing exercises every day. Okay, so we started the presentation by saying, what is yoga? And I'd like to leave you with the definition of yoga. Yoga is actually a way of life. Yoga teaches you how you should think, your ethics, your principles. It teaches you how to eat, how to exercise. It teaches you meditation, how to behave. All of that comprises yoga philosophy. And so it's difficult to say this is yoga or that is yoga. Yoga is actually a way of life. So that is the presentation for today. Thank you. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask now.
Participants, any queries from your side? Anyone? Any question? So I think no issues are there.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
So we must conclude now. So thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much.
So this session was, I think, completely different from our last technical sessions, and hopefully the bit refreshing one for all of us. And as madam has explained us the detailed description of yoga, how do we all define yoga? Some link it to spirituality, whereas others think it the other way, like meditation or exercise, and some call it as philosophy. So starting from its origin, that is from the period of Rig Vedas, madam has explained its importance and its relevance in our daily life. So well, there is one question, I think. One is asking which yoga can relieve stress.
Yes, so there is no particular kind of yoga that will help with stress relief, but the component of yoga, the meditative component of yoga, that will definitely help you with stress relief. So like I mentioned in Ashtanga yoga, you have pratyahara, so looking within, dhyan, dharana, and samadhi. So all of these will help you. If you're looking for stress relief, I would recommend that you do the writing practices every day. That has shown to be very useful and very effective as a means of stress relief.
Okay, thank you. So also, as ma'am Pragya Bhatt has said, that yoga has the capacity to provide us mental as well as physical relief, and it also helps us to balance our nervous system. And at last, as ma'am was again saying, that we should do these three chores in our daily life, that is asanas, meditation, as well as writing. So this is all about yoga, and ma'am have explained it in very descriptive manner. So thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot for joining us. So it was really a wonderful and informative session for all the participants as well as for ourselves. So once again, I thank ma'am Pragya Bhatt a lot for joining us during this session. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you all the participants.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
So we say goodbye today also. So we'll join tomorrow morning for our last day, that is day 5 of this FDP. So we will be having 2 technical sessions during the last day, and in the afternoon at 2:30 we will be having our valedictory, as well as we have to finish the certain norm, fill the certain norms, like we have to fill the feedback form, and then there will be an online test for all of you, and you have to score minimum 60% marks in that test. So I hope
Okay.
that everybody will fulfill the requirements. So thank you all.
Yes.
So we'll join tomorrow morning. So thanks a lot. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.